I was the town manager of a small ski resort town in southern Utah in the late 70s. And I didn't have much money, they didn't either, so I developed a unique managerial style, and I think this chapter speaks to that. It's called A Real Trooper. A state trooper pulled over slowly as I was hitchhiking in Minersville, Utah in 1977. He's going to run a computer check on me, I thought to myself, to see if there are any warrants out for my arrest. This had happened to me many times before, so I got out my driver's license, opened the passenger side door, and handed it to him. No, I don't need to see that. Hop in. I'll give you a ride. I've been hitching for over 10 years and never had a ride offer from a cop. How could I decline? Where are you heading? He asked. Milford. I'm going to a state transportation meeting. Me too. I'm the head of the highway patrol for this region. I told him that I worked at Brian Head, Utah. A hitchhiking town manager was out of his realm of experience, so the officer was incredulous at first, but our destinations were indeed the same. The steepest paved road in Utah accessed our ski resort town situated at 10,000 feet. Some of the switchbacks desperately needed new guardrails. Only the rebar inside crumbling cement posts held them up. I was going to encourage our regional transportation czar to make our situation a high priority. Milford is one of my favorite Utah towns. In the early 1870s, cattle ranching began in the area. With only a few shacks built in the hills near mines, residents in the 1880s described Milford as a perfect mud hole, or the perfection of desolation. During the 1880s, Milford became the railroad terminus for the Southern Utah Railroad, which made it an important supply station and shipping center for local mines and ranches. After 2 failed attempts, the line was extended to Caliente, Nevada in 1901, linking Utah to California. Milford, a division point on the railroad, was incorporated in 1903. The Union Pacific Railroad, which absorbed the smaller rail lines, is still the community's largest employer. The trooper and I got to Milford an hour early and decided to get a bite at the Hong Kong Cafe. This establishment had been in an Asian family's hands since unskilled Chinese laborers, derogatively called coolies, built the railroad. The food was exceptional. We had a great meal and a nice chat. After the meeting, where the transportation czar comfortingly told me the guardrails only had psychological value anyway, the officer offered me a ride home. I had to decline. The reason I was hitchhiking to this meeting was because I had another meeting with the state health department early the next day in Salt Lake City. There was no way that I could attend the meeting in Milford, stay awake for a 5-hour drive to Salt Lake, and be coherent for my morning rendezvous. I knew Milford was a railroad town where the Union Pacific stopped to change crews. I decided that my best course of action was to hitch to Milford for meeting number 1 and then catch a freight train to Salt Lake City that evening. I could sleep on the train, clean up at the Greyhound bus terminal in Salt Lake City the next morning, put my pack in a locker, and take a city bus to meeting number 2. Thanks, I told the trooper, but I'm going to stay here and catch a freight train to Salt Lake City. I have an important meeting at the state capitol in the morning. He bade me an incredulous goodbye. Many in conservative southern Utah thought the people in our ski resort town were heathens from hell. I'm sure a tale about a hitchhiking, freight riding town manager did little to change their minds. You can't make both meetings, my intellect had initially insisted. We can, sure can't, was my intuition's reply. Think outside the little boxes you create to file your life away. The great Sufi poet Hafiz writes, I rarely let the word no escape from my mouth because it is so plain to my soul that God has shouted yes, yes, yes to every luminous movement in existence. Like I shouted yes, yes, yes to the luminous movement of the approaching locomotive headlamps later that evening.
Wow.